I was bawling my eyes out. She does not want to live that back in the day womanly life, which obviously, yeah, good for her. It's just completely evaporated from my brain. I hate him, but he's so cute. Oh my gosh, I cannot stand him, but he's so beautiful. Everyone, hi, hello, hi. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Ivy and welcome to The Geek Goddess, where I talk all about books on this channel. So today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read during the month of August. I read a total of 8 books because I was in a little bit of a slump, I'm not gonna lie. But I still read 8, so pretty proud of myself, including a new favorite. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the way that this works is I usually go from the lowest rating all the way to the highest, including any DNFs that I have. However, I am happy to say that during the month of August, I didn't DNF any book. So yay! So let's go ahead and get started with our lowest rated books, which unfortunately we had 2 that were more on the lower end. So let's get started with those. So starting with our 2 stars, so I have 2 stars here for you guys, starting with The Girl Next Door by Ketchum. So this book we read for my in real life book club book, and honestly, I didn't like this book. I mean, it was okay, but I was very bothered by it, I'm not gonna lie. And this one we are following a few characters. We are following this neighborhood, and there is this one girl that ends up being, I can't even say the word, she ends up being hurt by other neighborhood kids, and they do horrible things to her over the course of weeks or months. And this is based off of a real crime story, which is really, really sad. But I think, honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I feel like the reason why I didn't like it was because of the writing. I just thought it was really creepy, the way that the author would talk about little girls. I just thought it was so creepy, so weird. And then like hearing the audiobook, because I was listening to the audiobook, and it was this like grown man voice trying to be a little kid talking about little kids. Like it just came off so creepy and it bothered me so much. So because of that, like I had to knock it down so many stars because it bothered me so much. Had I read the physical book, it would have been a little bit easier because I would be able to picture the child. You know what I mean? I'd be able to picture a child saying these things, not a grown man. But because I was listening to the audiobook and it was a grown man speaking, it was just so creepy, and it really bothered me. It just really bothered me. I couldn't get past that part. So if it had been physical, if it was a physical book, it might have not been as bad. Please check trigger warnings for this though, because there are so many triggers in this book. This book is dark. It is definitely dark. Ketchum is known for very dark books. Unfortunately, this was a no for me, but alas. The next book is my 2.5 star, and that is going to be The Scorpion and the Night Blossom by Amélie when Zhao. So I read this a part of a reading blog that I have coming up where I read books like K-pop Demon Hunters, or books that are similar to K-pop Demon Hunters, and then I read this one. So the reason why I'm ranking it so low is because I honestly just read this last month and I cannot tell you anything about this book. That is how much it's like left my brain. You know what I mean? I remember as I was listening to it, I thought it was enjoyable, which is why it's a 2.5. But after that, like I literally remember nothing. Like it's just completely evaporated from my brain. But I do remember when I finished it and I realized that it was going to be a series, I was like, nah, I'm not going to read that. That's all I remember. That is all I remember. And so this is about a girl who went to the immortality trials. So she wants to be immortal because her mom is sick. So she needs to go to these immortality trials so that she can give her mom the immortality pill so that her mom can get better. And along the lines, she meets this guy that is part demon or something like that. Yeah, this guy that's like part demon. So we have Genu Rumi vibes, which is why it was referenced to K-pop Demon Hunters. but it does take place, I believe this is Chinese mythology. I believe it's Chinese mythology if I'm not mistaken. So it is different from K-pop Demon Hunters in the mythology aspect of it. However, like the romance and all that is very similar. So but yeah, I couldn't tell you anything else because I literally forgot so much of it. So that's 2.5 stars. So now let's move on to my 3 stars. Okay, so the first 3-star that we're gonna talk about, we actually just have 3.5s, so that's good, right? And the first book that we're going to talk about is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This one I read physically, and this is about a woman that she is like literally having the shiznit of the stick, okay? She's having the shiznit of the stick. She just found out that her boyfriend like cheated on her. She cannot afford her rent anymore. And so she decides to apply for this job to be a babysitter for this really luxurious apartment building called the Bartholomew that only celebrities and very rich people can afford, and it's extremely private. And what's in it for her is a free apartment for 3 months at this exclusive, fancy, luxurious apartment building, and on top of that, they would pay her $12,000. So she's like, I'm all in. She ends up getting hired, and of course, it seems a little too good to be true, right? And that is exactly the case because we realized that some things are very, very wrong in the Bartholomew. And this apartment building has its secrets. So I liked this book a lot. It did take me a little while to finish it, which is why I ranked it a 3.5. I do remember really enjoying it. I had a great time reading it. I thought it was very, like the mystery aspects of it were very intriguing. There was no like huge plot twist after plot twist that like made my jaw drop, and it was a little bit predictable for me. Like I already kind of knew what was going on with a few things, not everything, but a few things and I guessed it right. That being said though, I did have a great time reading this. It just took me a little bit too long, put me in a little bit of a reading slump, but it was a good read. It was a good read. I did enjoy it. So let's Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Okay, the next 3.5 star, and that is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. This one is another book that is referencing K-pop Demon Hunters, or book recommendations for if you liked K-pop Demon Hunters. And in this one, we are following the daughter of Chang'e, the Moon Goddess, the Moon Goddess from like Chinese mythology. We're following her daughter, and she basically goes to the celestial kingdom because she realizes that her mom is trapped on the moon, and she really wants to make sure that her mom is not cursed anymore. That way her mom is welcome to go wherever she pleases, across anywhere she wants. And so she tries to do this by going to the celestial kingdom and then working with the emperor's son to enhance her abilities and different things like that. And they fall in love. There's a little bit of a love triangle going on. And this book, the whole K-pop Demon Hunter aspects don't come into play till about 80% in the book. However, when it got me, and it was just a really good, fun time. I really enjoyed this book a lot. Had I wished that I read this physically? Yes, but I still had a great time, and I am definitely going to be finishing off the duology. Let's talk about our 4 stars. So for our 4 stars, the first book that we're going to talk about is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. So this was the sequel to Divine Rivals, so I can't really go into detail about what this book is about, but just know that it's following that, which is about a magical typewriter, rivals to enemies. It has war, it has gods versus goddesses, and all kinds of different tropes within it as a historical fantasy setting, and it is a YA book. I'm very shocked that I like this book because it was YA. However, actually, thinking back, I think I actually gave this a 3.5. So this is not supposed to be a 4 star. I'm so sorry, you guys. This is supposed to be a 3.5 as well because it wasn't as strong as the first book. And I feel like that's a complaint that I've been hearing very often with this book, is that it was good, but it wasn't as good as the first one. And I definitely feel that. The story was very fascinating. However, I don't think the pacing was as fast as the first book. For some reason, I wasn't as attached to the characters as I was in the first book. And I don't know, there's just different aspects in here that it just didn't hit me as hard as the first book did. I can't really go into detail about it because it is the second book, unfortunately, but just know, for me, this was not as strong as the first. However, it was still very enjoyable. Now we're getting to our 4 stars, is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Yes, I am shooketh that I feel like this is a book that people either love or they hate. And I am so happy to say that I am a part of the I love this side of it, because we are following this woman, right? We are following this woman who recently had a issue, right, with publicity because she's famous. And so her mom sends her to go live in the lake house. She's like, hey, just stay at the lake house till this all blows over. And so she decides to stay at the lake house, and then she starts a new pastime of spying on her rich neighbor. And then she realizes that her rich neighbor might be missing and maybe her husband did it. So a series of events ensue, and I really enjoyed this book. I'm not gonna lie, I really did enjoy it. The plot twist in this book, I feel like that's where it loses people, is the plot twist. I enjoyed the plot twist. I enjoyed where it went, okay? Know that going into this book that you have to think a little bit outside of the box. It is a book that's it's gonna take you by surprise, but it's going to, just think outside the box, okay? Just think outside of the box. It is not something that's like tied up in a pretty little bow. It's not something that's easily guessed. You know what I mean? It's something that's a little out there, and if you enjoy that, you would enjoy this book. If you don't like the thinking, the thought process, the writing, or the plot going a little out there, you're not gonna enjoy it, so don't pick it up. I enjoyed it. I like things that are a little woo-woo, the things that go a little out of the box. So I enjoyed this book. However, if that's not your cup of tea, this book is not for you. I liked it. I liked it. I thought it was really interesting. I like what he did with it. I can't even say it. I hate that I can't say it because it has to be like spoiler free, obviously, but just know there's something in there that I really enjoyed. I liked what happened. I can see why that is what causes some people to be like, nope, this is not for me, but for me it is. So if you like things that are a little out there, you don't mind that, pick this up. If not, you're not gonna like this. Just letting you know. Okay, so the next book that we're gonna talk about is, drumroll please, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I finally read this, you guys. I have had my eyes on this book for a very long time. I've been wanting to read this book, and I am so happy to say that I read it. I enjoyed it. It was great. It was fantastic. So this is R.F. Kuang's debut. I didn't know that up until we had the book club, but this is R.F. Kuang's debut, which I thought was just so crazy that this is her first book because she wrote really, really well. And this is a book that is technically fantasy, but it is based in actual history following the Chinese Second World War, I believe, and certain real things, real events that occurred within it, but with a more fantasy setting that takes place in a more fantasy setting. And so we are following our main character, Rin. So Rin is with her uncle and her aunt, right? And her uncle and her aunt treat her like dog doo-doo because her parents passed away in this war. And so now her uncle and her aunt basically have authority over her. They're her guardians. And so she's working at this shop for her uncle and her aunt, doing selling things that are illegal. And then all of a sudden her aunt is like, hey Rin, we're gonna sell you off here. The matchmaker is gonna come and we're gonna sell you off to a husband. And Rin does not want that. Rin does not want a husband. She does not want to have kids. She does not want to live that back in the day womanly life, which obviously, yeah, good for her. So she decides to take this test called the Keju, something like that, which is a test that if you succeed, you get put into a military academy. And if you do really, really well, you get put into a specific military academy that pays for all of your tuition. However, the chances of that happening is very, 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 very low. But Rin decides to do it anyways, and she works really hard. And not only does she ace the test, she makes it to the biggest, baddest military school out there, and she becomes a warrior. And then we just see the plot start to unfold from there. This book was so good. The thing that made me drop a star is that the best part about this book was the military school setting. I thought that's when it was more fascinating, and then all of a sudden in a different part we jump 3 years. I would not have minded if there was an entire book just for the military school. I feel like it would have been more impactful. I feel like we would have gotten to know the characters a little bit more, because when certain things happen to certain characters, it didn't affect me as much because I wasn't as attached, versus if we had a whole book that was just this military school, I would have definitely been a lot more attached to each and every one of these single characters. So that's the only like problem that I had with it. And then just that time jump, I just feel like it didn't need that. However, I loved the social commentary. There is, though, it resembles like spirituality as like a whole, and the beliefs that a lot of spiritual people have about death, about psychedelics. It definitely talks about all kinds of different things that I thought was so fascinating. It even has a talk about, obviously it's misogyny, right? And how people viewed women back in the day. It talks about like what is our, like, why was our purpose as a woman just to have children? You know, it talks about different things and different commentary on so many deep topics that I really enjoyed. There's so many quotes in here that I highlighted, that I absolutely devoured. For example, you must conflate these concepts, the God inside you, the God within. Once you understand that these are one and the same, once you can hold both concepts in your hand, in your head, and know them to be true, you'll be a shaman. So talking about shamanism, religion, it talks about different psychedelics. It's just crazy. It talks about colonization. It talks about so many different things that I absolutely really enjoyed. Just the only star that I took away was just because I could have, like, I think it could have been stronger with a little bit more of a military setting background. So that's it. But however, I did really enjoy the story. I also thought the main character regressed a little bit. I feel like in the beginning she was very strategic, she was very like intelligent, and over the course of the story she becomes a little bit more spontaneous, more risky, not thinking things through, which I thought was very interesting, because at first she wasn't like that. Could it have been the war that did that to her? Maybe. But that's The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to talk about my favorite book of this month. It is going to definitely be in my top 10 books of the year, and it's probably going to make its way into being one of my favorite books of all time. It's going to be a part of that list, and that is none other than The God and the Gumiho by Sophie Kim. This book was so good. This is another book that I read because it was compared to K-pop Demon Hunters. This is the first book that I read, and I read this one physically, and it was just so amazing. So we are following two characters. We are following Kim Honey, and then we are following Seokga, which is the trickster god. So Kim Honey was known as the Scarlet Fox, and she was this Gumiho, which is kind of like the Korean version of like a succubus, until she has unalived so many men and stolen the souls of so many men, but she's gotten so full off of it, so she just doesn't do that anymore. And then we have Seokga, who is a trickster god that went up against his brother, and he lost. So his brother was like, hey, I'm going to take a lot of your powers away, and you're not going to be a part of this kingdom no more until you kill off either 1,000 like demon-like creatures, 1,000 creatures, the unrulies, I believe. And so that's what Seokga's doing, until a demon breaks loose from the hells and starts stealing the souls of people. And so his brothers, and then the Scarlet Fox does another unaliving. And so the brother's like, hey, you don't have to kill 1,000 unrulies. All you need to do is unalive the Scarlet Fox and unalive the demon, and then you'll be back in my good graces. You can come back to the palace. You'll be fine. And so, unfortunately, nobody knows who the Scarlet Fox is. And so, come in Kim Honey. She hears this. She realizes, hey, I'm the Scarlet Fox. I don't want him to catch me. So then she decides to become his assistant. The only thing is that these two absolutely despise each other. This is enemies to lovers at its finest, because what I really loved about this book is that so many enemies to lovers books, even though they're enemies to lovers, they still have those thoughts of like, oh, I hate him, but he's so cute. Oh my gosh, I cannot stand him, but he's so beautiful. And there was none of that in the beginning. Like, these people, when they hated each other, they hated each other. There was not one single thought about this person is attractive, I like them. None of that, none of that. These people despised each other up until they didn't. And the progression of their relationship just came so naturally, and it was so beautiful. And I got so attached to these two characters that by the very, very end, when I flipped to the last page, I was bawling my eyes out. I was bawling my eyes out. It made me cry so much. It was just so beautiful, so gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching. This big thing that happens in here that really broke my heart. But still, the ending was so bittersweet and beautiful. I absolutely loved it so much. Like, these characters are amazing. And if you want to read any book that is like K-pop Demon Hunters, this is definitely, if you liked Rumi and Jinu's vibes, this is 1000% that love story. 1000%. The whole love story between those two is in this book. If you want something that's literally Rumi and Jinu, but a different story, this is it. This is it. It's also Korean mythology. It's just so good. It's so good. It's so good. I absolutely loved it so much. My favorite book so far in August, and one of my favorite books. To be honest, this is probably my favorite book of the year. I'm not gonna lie. It's like there and Onyx Storm are like neck and neck, because they're so good. It was just so good. Anyways, you guys, those are all the books that I read during the month of August. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell to be notified when I post, and I will see you in the next video. Let me know what was your favorite book of August down below in the comments. So, bye!